The indigenous people of America faced unbelievably harsh conditions to survive. Most of us wouldn't have made it 2 weeks out there, but how exactly did they manage? Their homes not only withstood natural forces that would level modern buildings, but they also created pockets of warmth and comfort. Life went on inside by the fire, while the apocalypse seemed to rage outside. This isn't just a story of pushing human endurance to its absolute limits, but a testament to ingenious engineering refined over generations. It's about having a profound understanding of the laws of nature, which allowed them to use even blizzards to their advantage. Music. If you watch the video until the end, you'll discover how the simple teepee design used the power of winter winds to heat the dwelling, and the secret component that transformed it into the ultimate climate control system. What if I told you that a teepee isn't just a tent, but more like a living, breathing thing? We tend to think of houses as static boxes that passively protect us from the weather, but Native Americans had a totally different view. They saw their dwellings as active partners that interacted with the wind, snow, and cold. The Tepee didn't fight the elements, but instead harnessed their energy for its own good. The design was a dynamic system that could adapt to the slightest changes in the weather. It wasn't a barrier separating people from nature, but rather a membrane that allowed them to coexist peacefully. The key to this system was breathing. Air constantly flowed through carefully placed openings at the top and bottom of the tepee. This process, similar to how lungs work, created a draft for the fire and removed smoke. The wind outside actually amplified this draft, helping the tepee to breathe more deeply and efficiently. So, the stronger the blizzard, the better the internal fire worked. The dwelling wasn't just resisting the storm, it was entering into a symbiosis with it. It was a complete ecosystem where every part played a role. The poles acted as the skeleton, the covering was the skin, and the internal fire was the heart. Together, they formed a single organism, living in harmony with the world around it. This way of looking at a home changes everything. It's not just about the materials used, but a continuation of a philosophy where fighting nature is pointless. It's about understanding nature's rules and being able to follow them. This is what made the tepee so effective. Its strength wasn't in the thickness of its walls, but in the flexibility and intelligence of its design. It was a dwelling designed not by engineers, but by generations of wise people. They knew that true protection isn't about blindly defending yourself, but about adapting intelligently. The tepee didn't try to stop the wind, but directed its currents. It didn't try to beat the cold, but turned it into an ally. This idea of a living house is one of the most significant and overlooked achievements of indigenous culture. It shows a level of harmony with the world that we've almost lost today. Modern technology isolates us, while the tepee taught us to work together with nature. Do you think modern houses can be called living in the same way as teepees? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Are you ready to learn the truth about why a simple cone shape turned out to be more ingenious than even the most complex architectural solutions? At first glance, a cone might seem too basic, but behind this simplicity is a perfect understanding of aerodynamics and physics. When hurricane-force winds hit the camp, they didn't meet a flat wall. Instead, the air currents flowed smoothly around the sloping walls of the tepee on all sides. This minimized wind pressure and reduced the sail effect on the structure. Any square building would have created turbulence and experienced tremendous stress. The cone, on the other hand, allowed the wind to slide over its surface without causing damage. That's why the tepee could withstand conditions that would tear other shelters to pieces. This same shape worked perfectly during heavy snowfalls. On a flat or slightly sloping roof, tons of snow would pile up, threatening to collapse the structure. But the steep sides of the tepee didn't give the snow a chance to stick. The snow simply slid down under its own weight, accumulating at the base of the dwelling. This wasn't just convenient, It was brilliant. The snowdrifts at the base created an extra layer of insulation, protecting the lower part of the Tepee from the biting wind. So, the more it snowed, the warmer the shelter became. The element that was supposed to destroy actually strengthened and insulated the dwelling. This is another example of how the Tepee design turned a threat into an advantage. The entire structure was based on long poles tied together at the top. This system wasn't rigid, but had some flexibility. During gusts of wind, the poles could bend slightly, absorbing the force, and then return to their original position. Most teepees weren't perfect cones, but were slightly tilted backward. This made the rear, steeper wall even more resistant to the prevailing winds, and the more sloping front created more space above the entrance and fireplace. Every detail of the shape was the result of centuries of observation and experimentation. Nothing was accidental or unnecessary. It was a triumph of functionality over ornamentation, pure natural engineering. This perfect shape was the primary secret to surviving harsh winter conditions. It ensured the structural integrity of the Tepee and passively protected it from the fury of the elements. The Tepee resembled a rock in the middle of a raging ocean. But the ideal shape was only half the battle. Are you ready to discover the secret inner layer that transformed the Tepee from a simple shelter into a cozy home? Even when a blizzard was raging outside, I'll reveal the most closely guarded secret of Native American dwellings, one that you won't find in textbooks. Most people believe that a Tepee is just skins stretched over a frame, but that's a major misconception that overlooks a key element of the entire system, the inner screen lining. Known to the Lakota as the Ozan, this screen was a wide strip of treated skins or canvas. It was attached to the poles at about human height, running along the entire inner perimeter of the dwelling, but not reaching the top or the floor. At first glance, it might seem like a simple decoration or protection from dripping water, but in reality, the Ozan was the heart of the Tepee's climate control system. It performed several vital functions at once, turning the shelter into a comfortable space. First, it created an air gap between the outer wall and the interior living space. Cold air seeping under the outer edge of the covering didn't reach the people inside. Instead, it rushed upward through the gap between the two layers of skins. This flow of cold air, rising to the top of the Tepee, created a powerful draft for the fire. It literally pushed the smoke out through the smoke vents. This made it possible to sit by an open fire inside the Tepee without suffocating from the smoke. It was a clever chimney effect built into the very structure of the dwelling. The smoke didn't mix with the air in the room, but rose straight up. The Ozan created an invisible wall, separating the flows of clean and smoky air. Second, the inner screen served as an excellent insulator. The air gap between the two layers of skins significantly reduced heat loss. It worked on the same principle as modern double-pane windows. Plus, the smooth inner surface of the screen reflected heat from the fire back into the living space. This created a feeling of comfort and even warmth. People were warmed not only by the direct heat from the fire, but also by the reflected heat from all sides. The Ozan also solved the problem of condensation. In any dwelling in cold weather, moisture from people's breath condenses on cold walls. In the Tepee, all the moisture settled on the outer shell and then flowed down it without getting inside, thanks to the inner screen. This seemingly simple element was a real technological breakthrough, providing ventilation, insulation, heat reflection, and humidity control. Without the Ozan, life in a Tepee would have been impossible. What I'm about to show you will completely change your perception of campfires. At the center of each Tepee was a hearth, a source of heat, light, and life. But it wasn't just a campfire, but a carefully designed and controlled system that followed its own rules. Unlike the large, bright fires we're used to seeing, the hearth in a Tepee was surprisingly small, usually dug out as a shallow pit no more than half a meter in diameter. Size was critical to efficiency. A small hearth required much less firewood, which was incredibly important in winter when fuel was a precious resource. Every branch was used to its maximum potential. The design of the fire was also special. The wood was often stacked vertically in the form of a small hut. This type of flame burned evenly, produced less smoke, and allowed the intensity of the fire to be easily controlled by adding logs one at a time. The location of the hearth in the very center was ideal from a thermal engineering standpoint. The heat from the fire spread evenly in all directions, heating the entire interior space. There were no cold corners or overheated areas. The main control element of this system was the smoke flaps, two wings at the top of the tepi. Long poles were tied to their ends, reaching down to the ground. These poles were used to adjust the smoke opening. The inhabitants of the teepee constantly adjusted these flaps. Just as a captain controls the sails of a ship, they could be turned depending on the direction of the wind to create the optimal draft. In calm weather, they were opened wider, and during a hurricane, they were almost completely closed on the windward side. But how do you keep the fire going when all the firewood is covered with snow? In the next chapter, you'll learn about the ingenious methods of fuel harvesting that made it possible to survive any winter. Winter survival on the plains was a strategic task, and fuel harvesting played a key role in it. Preparations for the cold weather began long before the first snowfall. Autumn was a time for intensive firewood gathering. Families gathered any dry wood they could find, with a preference for hardwoods like cottonwood or willow, which grew along rivers. These woods burned slowly and gave off a lot of heat. The collected firewood wasn't left outside, but was brought inside the tepi and neatly stacked around the perimeter. The firewood was stored in the space between the outer covering and the inner screen, where it remained dry and was always within easy reach. This fuel supply was a vital insurance policy. When a blizzard swept through the area for several days, the family could keep the fire going without having to venture outside, ensuring complete self-sufficiency during the storm. But trees were rare in the vast expanses of the Great Plains, so the main and most reliable source of fuel was dried bison dung, the real gold of the plains, without which winter survival would have been impossible. During the summer and fall, women gathered this valuable resource. Dried in the sun, it became hard and light. It burned very slowly with almost no smoke, giving off an even and strong heat that was perfect for heating a teepee. Supplies of this fuel were also stored inside or near the dwelling, protected from the snow. Its efficiency was so high that many travelers of the time noted its advantage over firewood, as it produced less soot and didn't spark. Rational use of fuel was the foundation of everything. The fire never burned unnecessarily. At night, it was reduced to smoldering coals, which maintained the heat until morning and allowed the flame to be quickly rekindled with the first rays of the sun. People understood the value of every log and every cake of dung. It wasn't just fuel, but concentrated energy from the sun and the earth, and they treated it with respect and care. So, the fuel problem was solved through foresight, planning, and the use of all available resources. The inhabitants of the plains didn't wait for winter to catch them by surprise, but prepared for it in advance, creating reserves that guaranteed warmth and life. What if I told you that the main secret of the teepee's stability wasn't in the poles, but underground? Even the most aerodynamic shape would be useless if the dwelling wasn't securely anchored to the ground. Indigenous peoples developed a simple yet extremely effective anchoring system. The bottom edge of the skin covering didn't simply lie on the ground. Loops were made around its entire perimeter, through which wooden stakes were driven into the ground. These stakes held the covering firmly in place, preventing the wind from getting underneath. The stakes were driven in at an angle, which significantly increased their holding power, making it very difficult to pull them out. As a result, the covering was stretched tight and pressed firmly to the ground, creating a sealed connection. If the ground was too frozen or rocky for stakes, another method was used. Large, heavy stones were placed around the perimeter of the teepee. Their weight pressed the edge of the covering to the ground, serving the same function as the stakes. This fastening system was flexible and adaptable to any conditions. Long stakes were used on soft soil and stones on hard soil, but the main principle remained the same. Don't leave a single gap at the bottom for the wind to get in. The most ingenious technique was to use the elements themselves to strengthen the dwelling. As soon as it began to snow, people went outside and began to shovel snow onto the base of the teepee, creating a thick snowbank around the dwelling. This wall not only served as an additional anchor, but also as an excellent insulator, completely blocking any drafts that could seep under the roof. The stronger the blizzard, the higher and stronger this protective barrier became. Snow, which many consider a symbol of danger, became a building material, sealing the dwelling from below and making it completely windproof. This was another example of how a threat was turned into an advantage. Inside the dwelling, this created a feeling of complete safety and comfort. Even when the wind howled outside, it was completely quiet and calm on the floor, where you could sit without fear of cold drafts. The entire structure, from top to bottom, worked as a single unit. The flexible frame dampened gusts of wind, and the secure attachment to the ground prevented it from moving. It was the perfect balance between flexibility and strength. But even the most durable dwelling is useless without proper organization of the interior space. In the next chapter, you'll learn how life inside a teepee helped people survive the harshest frosts. The floor of a teepee was never bare earth. For the inhabitants of the plains, that was as unthinkable as sleeping on bare concrete would be for us. Creating a warm, dry floor was one of the most important elements of preparing for winter. The entire surface of the ground inside the dwelling was covered with a thick layer of dry grass or branches, creating an air cushion that blocked the cold coming from the frozen ground. A simple but very effective insulating material. Bison hides were laid on top of this plant-based layer. These huge, thick hides with dense fur served as the perfect carpet, soft, warm, and durable. The result was a multi-layered floor that provided reliable protection from the cold, making it possible to sit or lie directly on the floor without feeling the cold from the ground. This turned the entire interior space into a comfortable living area. Sleeping areas were organized with particular care, with additional layers of fur laid on top of the common carpet of skins, creating soft and very warm beds. Bison skins were also used as blankets, so warm that they allowed you to sleep comfortably even in the most severe frost, when the fire in the hearth was almost extinguished. A person found themselves in a cocoon of fur, completely protected from the cold. Comfort was achieved through layering and the use of natural materials. Dry grass, hides, and furs all created a warm and healthy living environment, a simple but very effective system of insulation. During the long winter months, especially during blizzards, family life centered around the hearth. The interior of the teepee wasn't just a dwelling, but a small universe living by its own rules. Everyone knew their place and their role. The space inside was clearly divided into zones. The place opposite the entrance was considered the most honorable and was reserved for the head of the family. The rest of the household members sat on either side according to their status. Winter wasn't a period of idleness, but a time for crafts and preparation for the coming season. Men repaired weapons, made new arrows, and carved wood. Women processed hides, sewed clothes and moccasins, and embroidered them with patterns. They prepared food, tended the fire, and kept the house tidy. Constant activity filled the house with life. Food was prepared right on the central hearth, cooked in cauldrons or roasted over coals. The aromas of the food being prepared mixed with the smell of smoke, creating a unique atmosphere of homey comfort. In addition to physical work, winter was a time for spiritual life. Long evenings by the fire were devoted to storytelling. The elders passed on the myths, legends, and history of their people to the young. These stories weren't just entertainment, but the main way of teaching, passing on knowledge and moral values. Listening to them, young people absorbed the wisdom of generations. Joint activities in close proximity strengthened family ties. People spent a lot of time together, communicating, working, and relaxing, creating a strong sense of unity and mutual support. Even during the most terrible storms, life inside the Tepee continued as usual, filled with work, communication, and tranquility. The hearth warmed not only bodies, but also souls, dispelling the darkness and cold of the outside world. Survival was ensured not only by technology, but also by the proper organization of daily life. Orderly and meaningful activity helped maintain morale and physical strength. It was a victory of order and culture over the chaos of the elements. The Tepees rarely stood alone, but were part of a large winter camp that functioned as a single social and defensive organism. Survival in harsh conditions was a collective task. The camp was usually set up in a place protected from the wind, like a river valley or a grove. The choice of location was the first and most important step in determining how comfortable the winter would be, with proximity to water and the availability of fuel supplies taken into account. The dwellings in the camp weren't arranged randomly, but formed a large circle. This layout was not only symbolic, but also deeply practical. The circle provided additional protection from the wind, with the outer tepees sheltering the inner ones. The entrance to each tepee traditionally faced east, allowing the first rays of the morning sun to penetrate inside, bringing light and warmth, and also protecting the entrance from the prevailing west and north winds. During heavy snowstorms, the entire camp acted as a single entity. If one family ran out of firewood, their neighbors shared their supplies. No one was left alone with their troubles. Strong young men took responsibility for the safety of the camp, making sure that no one was buried by snow and clearing paths between the tepees when necessary. Strength lay not in individual dwellings, but in their unity. The camp was like a large ship sailing confidently through an icy storm. Social organization and mutual aid were as important to survival as the perfect construction of the tepee. Even the warmest dwelling won't protect you from the cold if you aren't dressed and fed properly. The clothing and food of the indigenous peoples were as perfectly adapted to winter conditions as their homes, forming a holistic system of survival. The basis of winter clothing was items sewn from well-processed bison, deer, or moose skins. Leather tanned using animal fat and brains became soft, durable, and waterproof. The fur was often left on the inside for maximum warmth. The principle of layering was well known and actively used, with people wearing several layers of loose clothing. The air pockets between the layers served as an excellent insulator, retaining body heat. Particular attention was paid to protecting the feet. Winter moccasins were made tall and sewn from thick leather, with insoles made of dry grass or fur placed inside. The moccasins were worn over warm socks made of animal skins. Hands were protected with spacious mittens and heads with fur hats or hoods. This clothing completely covered the body, leaving no chance for the cold to get in. It was light, didn't restrict movement, and allowed any work to be done in the cold. Nutrition played an equally important role. To withstand the cold, the body had to generate a lot of heat, which required high-calorie food. The winter diet was rich in fats and proteins. The main winter food was pemmican, a concentrate of dried and ground bison meat mixed with melted fat and sometimes dried berries. It was incredibly nutritious and could be stored for years. A small piece of pemmican could sustain a person for many hours, making it the ideal food for harsh conditions. Light, compact, and requiring no preparation, and always kept on hand in case of an emergency. In addition to pemmican, dried and smoked meat was also consumed. Hot soups and stews made from meat with added roots helped warm up and restore strength, and drinking plenty of hot herbal teas prevented dehydration. This system, consisting of proper clothing and proper nutrition, allowed a person to generate and retain their own heat. Combined with the ingenious design of the Tepee, this provided a complete guarantee of survival in the most extreme conditions. It was a victory of knowledge and foresight over the blind force of nature. We can see that the survival of Native Americans in harsh winter blizzards wasn't a miracle, but the result of deep knowledge and centuries-old wisdom. The Tepee isn't just a primitive tent, but a perfect climatic system where each element is well thought out and performs its function. The ingenious shape, double walls, controllable smoke vents, and secure attachment to the ground created an island of safety in the middle of an icy hell. This engineering concept was complemented by the proper organization of daily life, the prudent stockpiling of resources, and the strength of the social community. They embraced a holistic system where technology, culture, and a profound understanding of the natural world were deeply intertwined. Rather than battling against winter, they chose to coexist peacefully with it, harnessing its natural principles to their advantage. The Tepee's history provides a powerful lesson, demonstrating that the most efficient solutions frequently prove to be the simplest and most refined. It serves as a reminder that genuine prosperity resides not in the amassing of possessions, but in the extensive knowledge one possesses about the world they inhabit. Please share any topics you would like to see covered in future videos on our channel in the comments section below. And be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out on any of our upcoming explorations into the wisdom of ancient civilizations.